Welcome back to Half A Hot Rods. Today's kind of a first for me. I had a friend, his name is Tucker, call me a couple months ago and say, hey, I have a chance to get a couple of old Chevy square body trucks, and if I get them, and would you be willing to help me get one running for me, and then you would take the other one as payment? So I guess he's kind of my first paying customer. So again, I don't know a lot about these old trucks, but I guess I know more than him, so I'm going to try and help him out. He chose, there's a long bed and a short bed. He chose this one, the short bed, that he wants to keep for himself. There's supposed to be an 84 and an 86. I haven't decoded the VINs yet, but this one has a throttle body injected motor, which I think they didn't start till 87. So I'm guessing this is an 87. We'll get the VIN in the computer and Google it and everything later and try and figure it out. But today, my daughter Chesney, say hi, Ches.
Hi.
And we're going to see if we can get this thing to turn over, see if we can get it to fire. We'll give you a little tour of it here because it's rough. But in the end, it's still a short bed, which is pretty cool. Has a lot of potential. So we got the oil rag for a oil cap. We're missing alternator, fan. Looks like they started to pull it apart, pull the radiator out, which is concerning, because usually you don't pull parts off a running, driving truck. These were supposed to have been driven into a barn about 6 years ago and parked. The interior is rough. Somebody started pulling the steering column out of it, or there was a bear trapped in it. I don't know. It's been treated pretty badly at some point. We thought we found a bed. We're still trying to get a hold of that fella to see if we can actually get it home. We've got some, I like to call them farmer fixes, some modifications here that maybe aren't really the way we should have done it, but it held. Doesn't have to be pretty to work. But overall, it's a pretty solid truck body-wise. It's pretty straight and not a ton of rust through. There's surface rust, and you know, the paint's of course coming off it after all these years. But I've certainly seen worse as far as body condition. So we're going to dig into this thing and see if we can get it to turn over, see if we can get it to make some noise, and just figure out what we're working with. It's got oil in it, transmission fluid. Transmission fluid smells okay. Doesn't have any coolant in the radiator that I can tell. Yeah, I'm not sure what else is going on. Oh, there's a power steering line gone too. So there's a lot of little things missing off this that make me concerned for its well-being, but we'll dig into it. And the other truck is in better shape, so hopefully if this one doesn't have all the major components, we'll be able to pull off the other one what we need to make this one good. So we'll get started here and see what we've got. Okay, we're going to start and see if this motor will just turn over by hand, and that way we know if it's locked up or not. I'm just going to put a ratchet on the crank bolt. That's a good sign. I just turned it over with a 3/8 ratchet. Be better if I could keep the socket on it. Maybe that's not the right size. I put the wrong one. That's a good question. I had the right one in my hand. know if we're hitting compression there or if we're hitting broken. Just compression. Well, the good news is, I don't think the engine's locked up. So this one's a 350, the other one's a 305, which is ironic because the other one's a lot more truck. So this one should be a little rocket ship.
How do you know the engine's not locked up?
Because if it was locked up, I wouldn't be able to turn it like this. We're essentially turning the crankshaft, which is moving the pistons up and down in the cylinders. It's also turning the camshaft, and turning gears and everything else. Alright, I'm comfortable enough with that I think we'll see if any of our wiring isn't jacked up here. Hook this battery up. See if we can figure out how to make it start. The problem is the ignition has been messed with inside, and I'm not real sure we're going to be able to crank it like we would a key. And out here we got to figure out how many ground wires we have. Okay. Naturally, the black one is the positive here, and the red one is the ground, because the red goes to the block. This is, okay, that's nice. This is another, okay, this has got to be alternator, because this is the positive that runs down to the starter. So this would be the charging wire that goes to the alternator. I don't know what this fella here's for. So for the time being, we'll just get that out of there. You want to grab me a flathead screwdriver and we'll pry this little keeper off. And then there's an extra cable down here. What on earth is happening here? Where'd that guy go? Oh, that's something's down below. Interesting. And to top it all off, so Tucker got the right battery for the truck, which is the side post, and somebody who's probably like me doesn't like the side post batteries has switched out. Have we got? No. Yeah, has switched out the side post terminals for top post terminals. I might have a little charging post so we can get by with that for now. This looks like the old side post cable that went to the starter that hopefully doesn't anymore, since it looks like they put a new one in to go to the starter. Alternator wiring. The nice thing about GM is most of these plugs will only fit one thing. That's a vacuum line that's not connected to anything. It's connected to the throttle body. That's definitely an alternator plug. Alright, so I guess we better make sure that this old cable that is still in here is not actually connected to anything, because we don't want that giving us any grief. Is that? Okay. Well, let's get. That's crunchy. Rubber's not supposed to be crunchy. You know what a starter is on this? That's way too big.
Is it not there?
Down under there on the passenger side.
Is that not what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, that's where it's supposed to be. You're just not supposed to have two positive wires going to it. Do you want to grab a creeper and take it around that passenger side? When I take this loose, I'll have you look and see if you can follow it back and make sure it's not attached to anything. But don't get under it quite yet, because we're going to have to. Give it some oomph. Super. That fits nice. Alright. Now you can slide under there. See where this wire is?
This big one?
Yep.
I think it might. Can I have a way?
Yeah. Should be connected to the engine. Maybe bolted to it even. And then run back to the starter, which is the cylinder back there.
Yeah, hold it in here.
Is it connected on the other end to the starter?
It goes far back.
Should go all the way to the back of the engine where it connects the transmission.
Okay, so we need up here.
Yeah, so we just need to follow that and see if it's connected. Back there?
Back here.
Yeah. What's this one go to?
Also goes far back. Further back than I can see.
Okay.
What does that do?
Let me switch. Actually, you'll probably be able to see what we're trying to see better from behind the front tire.
Okay.
I hope not. What do you see?
Wires, rusty metal.
Yeah. So there should be two big cables coming to that, and then a little
Okay,
one.
I'm gonna wiggle them.
Okay.
No, wait. Is this it? Hey, that might be it.
Okay, that's the one that should be connected.
Okay, it's connected.
Okay. Now,
And these two smaller.
now there's another big one that goes back there. Can you see this?
No. Wiggle it again.
It might be bolted to the engine up here, so it might not be wiggling on your end.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Is there another cable down there just wiggling, just hanging loose?
No, I can't see one. There's nothing loose or hanging over here.
Alright.
Oh, wait. I don't know if you can see it from my end, but there's something that's not attached right here.
Is it a cable like the thickness of your pinky?
Yeah.
And it's not connected to anything?
And it has like an end to connect it to something on it.
Yeah, like a loop.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty thick wire, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think they just, for some reason, replaced the starter cable, but didn't, the battery cable, but didn't take it out.
That's what responsible people do.
Yeah, that's the right way to do it. Nope. Let's see if I got the little adapters to put in here. They're not intended to be used this way, but that's how we're going to use them. So we figured out we're going to have to run to town to get some battery cables because it's not his fault. Tucker didn't know any better. I always buy the batteries that have both kinds of cable ends, terminals, both kinds of terminals on the top of them, the top post and the side post, because it's just easier. That way you can charge the top post even if it is a side post connection. But before we run into town, because it's 15-20 minutes away, we're going to look around and see what else we see that might need some attention. One of those concerns is the fuel system. Because this is throttle body injected, it's going to have an electric tank in the pump. Electric pump in the tank, how about that? And they're a little more sensitive to sucking up gunk than the old mechanical pumps. And they're also a little harder to change. So I built a probe to stick down in there. One of those old battery cables that wasn't being used. And wrapped it up in paper towel because I figured that'll soak up what's in there, and then we can get an idea for what kind of gunk and how much. Well, that's dry. That seems like a good sign, except I don't think we're getting all the way in there. Because at that angle, no, that might be. That looks like the bottom of the tank. And, oh, yep, rotten gas.
Can you describe the smell?
Bad. It's just bad. It's easier to tell if you smell it yourself.
I'm okay.
Thanks for your help there. Yep, definitely. No matter how many times I smell it, it doesn't get better. But I'm not seeing big chunks of stuff. I'm sure there's chunks of stuff because this fill hose was on it and it was just turned down like that, and at some point, oh, there is a cap in it. That makes me happy. I thought that was just kind of covered, but it wasn't. But it's got a cap. So since there's not a ton of crud in here, I'll probably take my chances. I'll pour some gas on this guy and just see what happens. That makes me happy that somebody actually did something smart and covered that up so it didn't get critters and who knows what all packed in there. So we figured out. You want to show them our custom ignition key, Chris? So yeah, a screwdriver wouldn't fit in there, but there was a tab we could get a hold of. So the vice grips. I mean, that's custom. That costs extra. Perfect. All right, so we'll come back to that. Hopefully that'll make it crank. If you show them the wiring down in the bottom of that column, I don't know if that's going to actually actuate anything, because it looks like somebody was just throwing a tantrum when they tore this apart. But we'll see what we find. All right. So we'll keep poking around here. We know we need battery cable ends. Nice. I think I've got gas over here, if your brother hasn't used it all. Yeah, we got some. All right. Yeah, it turns over. We figured out how to turn the ignition. We'll get some new battery cable ends for those. And we may end up replacing cables down the road, but I don't know. If they're not corroded, I'll just put new ends on and call it good. That should be grounded. No, that's the alternator wire, because it's... Don't ever trust the color of wires on old cars, because it seems like nobody replaces positive with red and negative with black. I thought that's how it was done, but apparently I was mistaken. So I guess we'll run into town, grab some cable ends, and yeah, we'll pull a plug before we go and see what those look like. But I don't see anything else here I'm too scared of. This is emission stuff that's I don't know. That looks like it probably goes there, because that's where it reaches. This really looks like somebody was getting ready to pull this engine out. But I'm trying not to worry too much about that until I'm sure I have something to worry about. That should be part of my ground, but it's not. Okay. It's fine. They're both AC trucks, which is nice because we're in Texas and, you know, I think it's hotter than the devil down here. So maybe one day when we get them all running, we'll get the AC working too, so it has some breeze. Alright, yeah, I'm just going to pull a couple of plugs, see what's in it. We'll put what's in it back in it. And yeah, maybe we'll pull the distributor cap too and see if it looks like it's wrecked underneath. The wires aren't all chewed up by mice, which, since this was in a barn, my thought was the only thing I should have to worry about is dry rot and mice. And the plug wires don't look like they're all chewed up. They're cheap, just parts house replacements, but they'll work usually. Alright, yeah, I'm just going to grab a socket and a ratchet and we'll zip that cap off and look underneath and see how bad it looks. I don't want to buy a ton of parts for this engine until we know that it's okay. Just because it turns over doesn't mean that it's good. So we'll grab a socket and pull a couple of plugs. I don't know that I'm going to pull that cap off. Okay, I just pulled number 1 and number 3 out because they're easy. That's the first two on the driver's side. And neither one of them looks terrible. I mean, they look like they've been in there a minute. Things will rust in Texas in like an hour and a half, so I'm not really that worried about the rust. But the wear on the plug, they're not covered in oil or fuel. They are auto lights, which you get as many opinions on spark plugs as you will on what oil's the right one. And I guess as long as they make a fire, they're okay. But once we make sure this engine's good, I'll put AC Delcos in it just because I prefer to run those in a GM. I've had good luck with it. And I was told from a young age that auto lights are for Fords, and I try not to use that F word. So I think we're going to run these. So I'm not going to dig too much deeper because, again, we want to make sure this engine's good before we spend a bunch of money on pieces specifically for it. So I think we'll run in, get some battery cables, then we'll see if this thing's going to crank. We'll pour some fresh gas in the tank and just see what happens. See if the fuel pump makes noise, see if the starter makes noise, see if we can get it to pop. That's our goal for today. Is if it will run, I'd really like to hear it fire. So we'll take a little break, run into town, and be back in a few. Okay, we went and got our battery cable ends. I got to thinking about this being a dual tank truck, and we don't know which side that valve's going to be on, or if it's going to be willing to switch for us. So we probably ought to check both. Ooh, that's got more stuff. And maybe some crud. So we're going to hope that it's on the left side. Although it's probably not. That's probably why there's gas in this, because this was the side they were using. Oh yeah, that's really wet. So these have a valve that switches them from side to side. So we're going to hope that it is working, and that we can get it to the other side, or that we can dilute this old stuff enough. Yeah, it's bad too. I mean, maybe not as bad as the other side, but still pretty bad. We'll hope we can dilute it enough that it'll run. I try to still run on it, just we don't want to gum everything up. I went ahead and put those spark plugs back in. And I started changing out I got the battery cable ends changed out. They're just these universal deals. That's what it had on it. We switched them to these guys for the side post. So now we're going to get them connected up, and hopefully it won't make sparks or fire outside the engine anyway. And I disconnected I took the alternator one off here because we don't have an alternator, and I don't want hot wire just hanging around while we're doing stuff under here. So we're going to connect these up, and if we don't make any smoke, then we'll try turning our custom key. Right, positive, yep. And then still don't make any smoke, we'll try cranking it. If that works, well, that's a big if, getting that far. Let's see if we get any zaps on here. No zaps, okay. That means we don't have anything drawing right this second probably, which we shouldn't. The thing about these side posts is it's hard to get them tight enough without over tightening. I have a habit of over tightening things and just wrecking them. So we got juice now, and I'm not seeing any smoke anywhere. That's good. Not hearing anything from fuel pumps yet, which we shouldn't. I guess I should look under the dash at that fantastic wiring job under there. Like I said, with things torn apart in here, I don't know if we're going to get anything or not. Oh, we got wires cut under there too. Awesome. Alright, where's this guy set to? It's set to the left tank. So we should hear it make noise. Well, I'm not hearing fuel pump, but she cranks. Oh shoot, I was going to cut that power steering belt. Do we have power steering fluid everywhere? Oh, we don't have power steering fluid everywhere. We'll go ahead and cut that belt before we do have power steering fluid everywhere. This probably isn't the right tool for the job. As rotten as this is, it probably won't matter. That hose being gone off the power steering, I don't want it just pumping fluid out of there. Back here, we'll just turn the key off. Yeah, we don't know if we're getting ignition. So that should be on. Sometimes with the electric pumps, if they're stuck, you can beat on the bottom of the tank or the top of the tank and get them to give you one more shot.
Science.
Science, exactly. Alright, I'm not hearing anything there. Alright, let's put some gas in this tank. Now let's switch tanks. I hate pulling up that tank, but let's see if we just hear that one prime. don't want a backfire because of the throttle body injection. There's a bunch of plastic stuff and a bunch of wires. I don't know where I put my light. I got all excited. It's on the back of the truck. We want to, we don't want to melt these with a backfire, which could easily happen. I don't see a bunch of crud in there or anything, so I'll open this up and give it just a taste. Let's see if we get a pop. Yeah! That's the stuff right there. Alright, well, she runs. You put a little stuff in the tank. I'm still not sure we have fuel pump, or that we have the fuel pump being told to turn on, because the wiring in this is a mess. So, is that back on the left hand? Yeah. I don't know. We could have a plugged up fuel filter, we could have a bad fuel pump relay, we could have a bad fuse. You could have all kinds of problems. But my buddy that's done a lot more of this stuff than me, and I always start with the simple stuff. And every time I don't start with the simple stuff, it comes back to bite me. So we're going to put good gas in this tank. Oh, it's pushing out the stink of that old stuff. It's just terrible. And we might have to get a cell phone video of this to send to Tucker so he can hear it. I'd rather get it to run on its own without bottle feeding it before we do that, though.
What sound does the fuel pump make? How do you know it's pumping?
It's like a whirring noise. I guess I should make sure this isn't running out on the floor. That would not be cool. These will rust out sometimes because these little plastic shields like to collect dirt and moisture and every other thing. And then they'll rot. But I don't see any pouring out on the ground, so we'll keep going. Like a whirring sound is, and anybody who's had a Chevy truck with a throttle body injection on it from 87 to 95 or so knows that sound because they make an awful racket. You don't replace them for noise though. Don't replace them unless they're not working, because some of them really holler. Putting about, I think there's about 4 gallons in this. It's supposed to be for mowing the lawn, but this is clearly more important than that, so. Of course, we're going to get it in here, and if the pump don't work, it won't make any difference. Super high speed fuel cover on. I think we'll go put a little in the other tank just to dilute that. Well, we're going to wait on that because I might have a way to suck that out of there. And I really don't want to run any more of that than I have to. Probably just leftover. Was that? So, oh, no, I wasn't moving the throttle. Maybe I was. No, I wasn't, because the throttle's not hooked up. I didn't think it felt like it was. Do you want to crank that for me? This is actually big for it, too.
Here.
We might just not be getting enough air, because I'm sure there's vacuum leaks and... Yep. Alright. Try spraying a little more stuff down it.
Okay, so why is it not starting? Just because there's no fuel?
It's not getting fuel.
Okay.
Because when we put the... I'm going to have to see if we're getting the right spot there. When we put... So the car clean is acting as fuel.
Mm-hmm.
When we put that down, it's firing up. This doesn't have the same type of fuel pump as the old ones did, where once you got it primed, it would just go. But when you're ready, we'll crank it again.
You ready?
See if it can make a difference. All right, go ahead. There's lots of yucky stuff in here.
I think the back wheels were just moving.
No, it might be in gear.
Oh my.
It shouldn't be, but I think the shifter's not hooked up.
Oh my gosh. So it's trying to drive away?
I just tried to run over myself. Did we answer the question, will it do a burnout?
I think it's dead. I don't know.
Huh.
This tire was just moving.
Maybe we should address that.
We probably. Yeah.
It's fine. Safety third.
Oh my gosh.
No, that tire's not even on the ground. It wasn't going to go anywhere.
Then why was it moving?
Because it's probably in gear.
Well, that one can move then.
No, it obviously doesn't have a fuzzy. Look, we just checked that out too. It's fine.
Okay, well, do you want me to do it again?
No, I want to get under it and put it in park. What are you thinking?
Oh my god.
I'm trying to be safe here. I don't know. Anyway.
That could have been real bad.
Oh, it's fine. How far was it going to go? There's, shelves and a wall and
And
stuff.
you.
That's, yeah. All right. Okay, we got it in what I think is park. The explosion of interior that was done left it with no shifter. So I just got under it and moved it back and forth till felt like what should be was park. It's in park now. And we jacked the rear end up and put it on jack stand. Stop laughing at me, Chaz, it's fine. So even if it isn't in park, now the rear end's off the ground, so it really shouldn't run over anybody. So we're going to give it another shot here. I want to hear it run for a couple minutes, even if I have to bottle feed it, so I can hear if it's making any really bad noises. And I put safety glasses on because it was spitting all kinds of dirt dauber nests and everything else out of there, so that was not fun. So give me just a second, Chaz. All right, go ahead. All right, hit it again. I don't suppose you're watching gauges, are you? So let's look for oil pressure. Over here.
This one? This one.
Can you see it?
Which one?
Well, it's the one that says oil pressure. Okay, that one's temperature on the bottom.
Oil.
Top one should be oil. It looks like an aftermarket gauge. We just want to know that it comes up off 0.
Okay.
Probably like to see 30 or 40 at least when it's running.
Okay.
And it may have a delay before it comes in.
Okay.
I'll tell you when. All right, hit it.
Didn't come off.
Okay. Try it again. Anything?
No.
We don't know for sure that the gauge is hooked up even.
So what does it mean if it doesn't come off 0 though?
Well, it either means the sender's bad or the gauge isn't hooked up or we got no oil pressure.
And what does no oil pressure mean?
No oil pressure is bad.
Okay, why?
Inside the engine is not getting lubricated.
Ah.
And
So it's
usually it's junk. It would have to be rebuilt or replaced. Judging by the sounds it's making, I don't think that's the case. I think we've got oil pressure. I just wanted to see if we saw it on the gauge. That sending unit usually is back on this side or at the back of the intake. With it being throttle body injected, there's all kinds of extra stuff. I'd like to figure out why we're not getting fuel from the tank though.
Do we start at the tank and trace it to the engine, or start at the engine and trace it to the tank?
You start with the simple stuff. So we need to start with fuses. And they're going to be, I think this is the fuel pump relay. That's not what was supposed to happen. Stubborn little bugger. There we go. Don't see any burnt terminals or anything. I'm sure there's a way to test that. I don't know what it is. I wonder if I just broke that when I pulled it off there. I probably did. It's Toto Bueno. Okay, so why are we not getting power to the fuel pump? Maybe time to take a break and go fire up the Google. See what we can figure out. I think that's what we're going to do. I think we're going to call day one on Tucker's truck a success. We did get to hear it fire. I didn't get to hear it run as much as I wanted to. We've got to figure out why the fuel pumps aren't firing, whether it's oil pressure sending unit interfering, whether it's a power problem, a ground problem, relay problem. I'm going to go gather some parts and use them as test pieces because I've got several other TBI 350 vehicles in the driveway now. So I don't mind buying a few to test and play with. May have to bypass the factory fuel pumps and see if we can get it to run that way. But at any rate, we've got some diagnosis to do. But for day one, finding out that it will fire, it doesn't sound terrible, it's not completely exploded, I feel pretty good about that. So we'll do some research, do some more internet reading and looking and tinkering, and then we'll come back and see what we can find next. Until then, remember, if I can do it, you can do it.